Fraud, waste, and abuse of government resources. It's wrong, and it's robbing taxpayers of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But you can prevent it as a Pinellas County employee. Hello, I'm Len Szynski.
And I'm Libby Bowling. Today, we take a look at some of the more common forms of government fraud, waste, and abuse, and what you as a county employee can do and should do to prevent it.
You may not even recognize it when it happens in front of you. You may have unwittingly been a participant in these unethical and illegal practices yourself. On today's program, we'll spell out the specifics and outline the best course of action to prevent this misuse of county resources.
Have you ever found yourself in any of these situations? Here's someone enjoying lunch with a county supplier. They're talking about movies, comparing notes on their families, discussing issues totally unrelated to government business. Then comes the time to go, and as a goodwill move, the supplier picks up the tab, stating that lunch is on her.
It's a little thing, and most would say a polite gesture, but it is unethical, against county policy, and a conflict of interest which could easily lead to fraud. It's a form of fraud since such a gesture might give the supplier the edge over the competition. A couple of lunches, maybe a nice dinner, another perk or two, and soon our employee feels she should return the favor by giving her lunch buddy preferential treatment in the selection of a vendor or supplier.
The same holds true for accepting gifts or donations, being privy to insider knowledge, enjoying any kind of favor or benefit even after the deal has been concluded and the contract has been signed. Here, a purchasing manager has just signed a contract with a major county vendor. To show his appreciation, the vendor offers our manager 2 free tickets to an upcoming sports event. You can bet they're good seats, but it's best to leave this deal alone or face severe penalties for unnecessary gratitude.
Accepting money for special consideration or appropriating money intent for another purpose is wrong. It is fraud. It is a prosecutable crime. Here, a more than generous supplier leaves a county manager a tip on the front seat of his county vehicle. But you can bet the supplier will want special consideration in the future. It's called a bribe, and it's clearly against the law.
Even for employees who never deal with vendors or suppliers, the temptation to misuse resources can happen daily.
Have you ever taken a department laptop home to do some work at night? Make sure you've checked that equipment out. Make sure you bring it back, and make sure you use it only for county business. Maybe you've borrowed the department camera to take pictures of your vacation. That's misuse of county resources. Here, an individual is using leftover materials and supplies to finish an outdoor project in her backyard. After all, they were only going to throw these materials away. Well, that's not for the employee to determine. That's fraud, and it's costing us all.
Employees can misuse their time as well. Do you know someone who regularly comes in late yet reports a full 8-hour day on their timesheet? How about someone who takes long lunch hours to do personal chores? People who wouldn't dream of stealing can still commit fraud by intentionally wasting time on the job in violation of county policy.
Forging papers, destruction or misuse of county property, failing to follow procedures and regulations resulting in project delays or extra expenses. This is all fraud, waste, and abuse of county resources.
So what do you do? What if you see a fellow employee involved in one of these fraudulent practices? What's your duty as a county employee?
You call the fraud hotline at 45-FRAUD or send an email to fraudhotline@pinellascounty.org. All inquiries will remain confidential. If you wish, you can remain anonymous as well, but you will be asked to provide specific information regarding the alleged activity. Members of the public who spot county employees involved in fraud, waste, or abuse are invited to report the activity as well. Once again, 45-FRAUD, or send an email to fraudhotline@pinellascounty.org. Libby?
With us now by telephone to tell us what happens in the county once a fraud, waste, or abuse allegation is reported is Hector Collazo, Inspector General for the Audit Services Division of the Pinellas County Clerk of the Circuit Court's Office. Thanks for joining us, Hector.
Glad to be here.
Hector, I presume that the wheels get in motion once you receive an email tip or a phone call. What happens after that?
Yes, they do. What we do is we try to gather as much information as we can from the caller or email. Try to analyze that information to see if we have jurisdiction. If we have jurisdiction, we'll open up a preliminary investigation and try to match up the facts with policies, procedures, and the records that we could gather. Once that is done and we determine we have jurisdiction, we'll open up an official investigation. If we do not have jurisdiction, we'll forward that investigation or complaint to the appropriate either department, constitutional officer, or potentially the state attorney's office or the sheriff's office.
So what happens to a county employee once these determinations are found true?
Well, it depends on the constitutional authority and what policies might have been violated, but it could be suspension, it could be termination. If the allegations prove to be criminal of some nature, it could be forwarded to the state attorney's office for their review and prosecution.
That sounds serious, Hector. It looks like employees can face severe consequences for their actions.
Well, fraud, waste, and abuse is serious, and we want the employees to be able to identify it and how to report it.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Here's our last clip. Here we see a department get-together, something you'd see during the holidays or even during Employee Appreciation Week. Looks like everyone is getting a prize, and they're all nice items. Is this management being generous? Not in this case. This loot was donated to the manager for her party by one of the county's largest suppliers.
Remember, if you see fraud, waste, or abuse of county resources, it's your duty to report it. Call 45-FRAUD or send an email to fraudhotline@pinellascounty.org. We all benefit when fraud is prevented or detected. I'm Len Szynski.
And I'm Libby Bowling. Thanks for watching, and thanks for doing the right thing concerning fraud, waste, and abuse of county resources.